What we did today was literally like holding water in your hand and walking around with it. It was almost an impossible task.
This is Los Angeles City Council President Herb Wesson speaking at City Hall Tuesday after the council approved a sweeping motion that included an incremental increase from $9 an hour, the current minimum wage, to $15 an hour by the year 2020. The City Council committee that wrestled for 8 months with the goal of increasing the minimum wage was chaired by Curran Price, the council member from the 9th District.
We don't want to celebrate too prematurely. We know there's still some work to do, but this is a significant first step in the greatest city on earth, and I'm proud that we have adopted this kind of positive, progressive measure to address an important concern in our community.
Good Sunday morning, everybody. About a long time ago, when I was a very young reporter, there was a city council representative from the 9th District who always referred to the 9th District as the great 9th District. The current representative is the Honorable Curran Price. He's with us today. It's the greatest district in, well, what the heck, the world.
Well, it is, and we call it the new 9th.
The new 9th.
The new 9th District, that's right.
Look, there was a lot of ink, a lot of airtime this week about the increase. It all focused on the $15 an hour increase, but that's only a little bit of it, and that $20 or the $15 is a few years away, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
You know, and it was really the result of a lot of work, Tony. As mentioned earlier, there were a number of hearings over the past 8 or 9 months. We had 4 reports. You know, one commissioned, one performed by Berkeley, another one commissioned by labor, another commissioned by the business community. So we had reports to review. We had several community meetings. We took testimony of over 600 or 700 people. And so the policy that we came up with, we thought was well thought out. It certainly is not perfect, but it's an important step. Poverty and income disparity is a big deal, Tony. It's a big deal across this country, a big deal in the state, and a big deal in Los Angeles. And people just can't live on a sub-minimum wage, and it's only proper that we try to raise all boats.
And we want to make sure that our viewers realize that you're not talking about, or this new ordinance does not cover restaurant workers, car wash workers. It covers everybody who
covers everybody. That's
makes
right.
an hourly wage.
Correct.
Whether you're a nurse or a whatever,
Correct.
a librarian.
Yes.
We put together a graphic. Our producer, Kathy Kang, put together a graphic, and it shows the incremental increases over the next 5 or 6 years. So if we can take a look at that, and we'll begin with that. And everything begins July 1st, 2016.
Correct.
Goes to 1050.
That's correct. And again, that was certainly in response to concerns we had from the business community, for example, who were concerned about absorbing big increases all at once. And so to phase it in, we thought was a reasonable, responsible approach to do.
And there was a lot of talk about that, and we'll talk about that in a second. But then each year on July 1st, it increases by a bit until we get to July 1st, 2020, when it gets to $15
That's
an
correct.
hour.
And smaller businesses, those with fewer than 25 employees or other nonprofits, will have an additional year to comply with that. Again, in deference to issues, concerns they may have about absorbing those costs early on.
There were a lot of people during the public testimony or the public comment part of Tuesday's session, ranging from representatives from the Los Angeles Area Chamber of Commerce to business owners, talking about how jobs are going to be lost because of this, because it amounts over the next 6 years to a 50% increase in what employers are going to have to pay their employees. Your response to
Well,
that?
you know, we don't really share that view that it's going to be massive layoffs, job loss. I mean, that certainly has not been the experience in other cities around the country or here in California. You know, but you can go back to the early 30s when the minimum wage first came in. Businesses were making that same claim then, that they couldn't pay. I think the reality is we find that businesses that are paying their employees better have less turnover. They are less inclined to leave. They are better employees. And the exciting thing, I think, to keep in mind is that these extra dollars, and it could be some, 60 million in the course of the year or so, but these dollars are going to be spent on Main Street, not Wall Street. And so folks are going to be buying groceries, they're going to be getting the car fixed, they're going to get clothes, they're going to the cleaners, they're getting medicine. And so it's going to really be a boost, we think, to the economy. You know, are there going to be some losses? Perhaps. We certainly want to minimize those. That's one of the reasons why we are phasing in the increases in an attempt to be sensitive to that and to give the business community time to adjust. But it certainly is not fair for costs to go up from housing and food and clothing, and yet we keep the minimum wage at a level that's just not fair for those that have to live on it. And as you know, the purpose was to provide a floor, to provide a safety net, and that safety net just doesn't exist anywhere. People have to work 3 or 4 jobs just to make ends meet, and it's not a way to do it.
But there was one comment that surprised me. Some of the folks on the council were talking about people working in the city of Los Angeles making $15 an hour, and then taking that money to wherever they may live, whether it's Compton, East LA, or Northridge. Right.
Well, there may be some.
I'm sorry. I meant what I was trying to say is I should have been clear. People who live outside the city of Los Angeles.
There may be some of that, but I think increasingly we see cities around LA looking at that too. The county is looking at increasing the minimum wage, and that certainly is going to be a big. It's going to cover a big part of that donut, if you will. And then you have other, cities in the area that are also looking at it. And I think with Los Angeles leading the way, other communities will provide some serious deliberation on that and move it forward.
One of the reasons we wanted to have you here, not only to thank you for raising this, being the leader of this, but also there are other facets to this that are not. They didn't get as much ink or as much airtime. And we put together another list of those. So let's take a look at those. Nonprofit waivers.
Okay. Well, again, there was a concern that nonprofit organizations would be disadvantaged, that they would have difficulty achieving the minimum wage schedules because of their source of income and their flow of their dollars. And so we thought that a waiver would be possible for a year to assist those nonprofits to meet those goals. It's not an exemption. As a part of our deliberations, however, we agreed to look at that issue again and to determine if whether or not the Homeboys or the Casellas or the Conservation Corps type operations that really rehabilitate individuals, if there's a better way to provide them with those resources. Some feel it's not right to give them a sub-minimum wage. They should be earning whatever that minimum wage is. And so we're going to try to hash that out. But we are sensitive to that issue.
Service charges.
Similarly, service charges, sometimes a battle of who gets them, who gets credit for them.
And I'm not sure that I know exactly what a service charge is. It's somehow related to a tip?
Yes, it's added to the bill. Frequently added to the bill, and it's another line item now frequently. But the concern
it's put there by the
restaurant.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so the fear is, of course, is that those charges are going to be charged against the employee as wages. And so, it's going to bump up his wage when really it's not. It's a service charge. It shouldn't have been counted that way.
And the service charge goes directly to the proprietor of the restaurant.
Right, who has the discretion of distributing it or doing whatever he wants to do with it.
And it's, from what I understand, there are some restaurants, some bars, it's an add-on to cover new expenses?
That's what they're calling it. Some use it for medical, some use it for other expenditures. The point is we need to account for it, and everyone needs to be clear if it's going to be counted toward the wage or not. I don't think it should be, but the reasonable minds differ, and we're going to be working that.
Under current California law, tips can be deducted from wages to some degree, or they cannot?
No.
No. Okay. So this raises then another issue. You kind of alluded to it earlier, that what you passed on Tuesday it's got a lot of things that can evolve.
It's got not a lot, but it's got some issues that still need to be resolved. The issue about nonprofits, issues about tips,
And we're going to talk about that, but my point was that
It's coming back.
It has to go what, to the city attorney's office?
No, it's going to come back to the council for final approval.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there'll be some changes, some amendments, some so on and so
Perhaps.
forth there. All right. Another one of the items, sick leave.
Well, again, sick leave, this has been a tradition in labor agreements in California for a while. I think most individuals appreciate the fact that they have 1 or 2 or more days of sick leave. And we think that sick leave should be a part of the package for individuals with the minimum wage as well. It's unfair to make someone go to work when they really should stay home and be at the doctor. I don't want anybody serving me food in their coffin because they can't stay home, or they feel they have to come to work instead of taking their kid to the doctor. So we're going to be looking at this carefully. Initially we said it should be done consistent with what's being done now. Some members had some issues with that, and so we're going to be looking at the exact number of sick days that are appropriate. I definitely think there should be some for individuals who are working the minimum wage, but that number is yet to be determined.
And the public concern about this was something that kind of came late to some of the...
Well, again, because the language said something like, it should be consistent with, and of course some of our policies, give several weeks off for sick pay, and the concern was that would be applied as well.
Okay. But what I gathered from public comment was that the committee became aware of the concern about that. It wasn't something that you were aware of from the very beginning.
Well, we certainly were aware of it. It wasn't handled specifically. Language was to do it later, and so we got to do it later.
Okay. Another item. The consumer price increase.
I think this could be our greatest legacy. A problem that has occurred in the past is that once the raises have been given, another 4 or 5 or 6 or 10 years goes by before they are adjusted. And while some are fearful of a consistent, moderate number there, the Consumer Price Index does measure the cost of goods. And so if goods are going up, the cost of living is going up, wages should go up. And so this just creates a mechanism for that to rise automatically. And so you don't go to a situation where you have 5 or 10 years and all of a sudden you have to try to play catch up again. Now remember, the council always has the prerogative of changing, stepping in, slowing down, speeding up. But I think it was significant that in the legislation we've got a component for CPI, and incidentally it's a component that exists in most legislation around the country as associated with minimum wages.
That's true. I think we have at least one more item. Teenage wages.
Yes. Well, again, we're following the rule of the state. There is a teenage wage for those under 18. That's so many hours a week, and we're going to be fully compliant with that. But it is an exception to the.
And it would be, they make what, 75%, 85%?
I think it's
80%
of the wage, of the minimum wage. Yeah.
All right. We have a couple more things to look at, but let's do that right after a break.
All right.
All right. We'll be right back. Stay with us.